What's good, everyone? You're listening to WKNC 88.1 FM Raleigh. We are a student-run nonprofit radio station based out of North Carolina State University. I'm Plover, and this is Off the Record, and I'm not alone in the studio right now. Do you all mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, my name is Newman.
How's it going? My name is Benny Okoto.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for coming out here. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Just stuck in traffic a little bit ago, so that's not fun, but appreciate you for having us.
Yeah, just doing good, man. Can't complain.
Love that. So you didn't have any traffic problems on the way here?
Nah, it was actually very smooth ride. Yep.
Nice. So the average of that should be good to go. So who are y'all and where are you from?
Yeah, like I said, my name is Newman. I'm from Raleigh. Yeah, pretty much from Raleigh, from the area. Family's from Ghana though, West Africa.
Yeah. Benny Okoto. Yeah, I'm from Raleigh. Yeah, from Raleigh. Family from Ghana.
So how do you all get started making music and kind of getting into the game as it suppose?
Yeah, I would say I always just had a love for music. And one day he just brought home a mic like we were in high school and we just started messing around with Audacity. I don't know if you're familiar with that software.
Yeah. Using that today. It's a great little thing.
Yeah, that's really where it started. But
yeah, I mean, I've always had a love for music. As far as I think it was 101.5.
Yeah.
G10. I don't remember if it was G, but 101.5 here in Raleigh. They would play like a bunch of eclectic music, and then we just kind of branched into a wider range, and then I found a love for hip hop.
Nice. So did you start making hip hop music to begin with, or is it just like songs you could create?
It was out there. It was based in hip hop, but it was
Sure.
like, I mean, I think everyone had like their EDM dubstep phase. But it started there with a bunch of little samples, but, we had hip-hop influence. But, yeah, it was out there at first, and then it just, see as far as we could go with it.
Nice. So what would you, I guess, describe as like a current style of music? Like, where are you at right now?
Right now I'm heavy on the raps. A lot of just raps, but also melodies as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you meant more so just like other artists, or just in general what we making?
What you're making, I guess, like if you have like comparisons or like just kind of like to describe to our listeners like what it sounds like.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I just like a lot of lyrics really have double meanings and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Things that touch on different topics. But really just raps for me. Just the sport of rapping.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for me, I just dropped I think a couple months ago back in the summer. It was called Lonely Hearts Club. So it was more like club music, kind of more like vibey, melodic music. So that's kind of what I'm trying to transition out of and go to like something else when I start creating again.
And you all have a specific show coming up this weekend that there are a lot of posters in the studio right now for those of you who are not in the room. But what is it exactly that you're doing this weekend?
Yeah, we got this thing called Day Shift, which is a day party basically. It's going down in Durham at the Fruit. It'll be from 2:30 to 9, and we got a lot of dope, artists outside of ourselves on the lineup, as well as like 4-5 different DJs in one room and 4 and 5 in another. So it's kind of like mini festival vibe. We got vendors and food trucks and things of that nature. Video game tournament going down.
Awesome.
If you're into Super Smash Bros, definitely pull up.
Nice. Yeah, I know some people who basically that's their religion, so I'll for sure let them know.
Oh yeah. Nobody can see me with Mario. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Hey, Captain Falcon, that's my guy.
Out there now. I'm more of a Palutena person.
You said which one?
Palutena.
Oh, that's a new.
That's a new one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do y'all rock with like Melee?
That's what I say.
Nice.
Melee's my main one, so I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't know all the, because that's Ultimate, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't know all the characters on there.
Dr. Mario was my Melee classic. I remember.
Yeah. He was cool. He's a little slower than the actual Mario, but it wasn't bad.
So yeah, y'all have a great lineup here. We of course love working with Tia Corinne. Is that really cool to put that together with her?
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
no,
she's dope. She's dope. Like I just recently, within like the last year or so, got put on to her. Yeah, she's fire.
Yeah, and that's really what we just wanted to do, was just artists from around the state that we just like what they got going on, just talented folks, and just try to curate something that was dope. So
yeah, for sure. So what was the idea for like a day party, like instead of just like a show, just like I don't know, on like a Friday night or something?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. We went up to New York this summer.
Okay.
And we went to a couple day parties out there. So I would say I got to give some inspiration to that. Just the type of vibe that was out there, especially with different DJs doing back-to-back sets. That was just like it was just a good time.
Mm-hmm.
So we figured when we started trying to do shows, and we've done a lot of shows in the past around the area, as well as when I was out in Virginia for a while. But this is one of our first ones, post COVID and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we figured we wanted to kind of add some of that flavor to it, as well as, like we said, just have a variety of dope artists on the lineup, but kind of maintain that party vibe.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
yeah, it's shorter sets for like the performances and longer for the DJ to spin. So
yeah, it's kind of a new concept that hopefully maybe might see more in the future, things like this.
Yeah.
That we hope to put on, not just us, but just everybody, take
like
something from it.
Right.
So it's like, is it like one room artists, one room DJs, or is like mostly DJs, like artists sprinkled in?
No, it's gonna be in the same room. It's 2 rooms basically.
Yeah.
So it's gonna start out with a bunch of DJs, and then we're gonna switch to some performances, go back to the DJs, more performances, that kind of thing. And then the other room is we're gonna have a vendor market, like I mentioned before. There'll also be performances and DJs in that room as well. But we just kind of try to have a mix of different things going on.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, honestly, the Fruits have been kind of carrying lately. There's so many venues that have just been like shutting down recently, but the Fruits like stayed really strong. That must have been really good to work with.
Shout out to the owner. He has a different kind of mindset of like putting on like things that are actually fun and different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, did you get to go to the Slingshot Festival?
Yeah, it was so good. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I wanted to go there.
Crazy.
How was the Boiler Room sets?
The ballroom set was wild. Let's see. I had to leave like a little before I think the peak part of it, but it was pretty cool. And just like again, it was like multi-room. Like if you didn't like something, you could just move on to the next one. And it was still always fire. And I also like how like it's very like bookable. Like you're able to put in a show at the Fruit, and like I don't know, a lot of venues seem like less like able to like navigate and actually put in an event. But the Fruit is always like this event by this person, like every second of the day, pretty much. We love that.
Yeah,
especially post COVID, just being able to do that. I like where they're going.
For sure. Do y'all have any like other like venues in the area that you may be looking at in the future besides that?
At the moment, like I said, this is our first one that we was able to focus on, but we definitely hope to do more.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we just kind of wanted to test the waters with this one and kind of go from there.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, also there's many venues that offer different kinds of things, whether it just be like museums or different kinds of creative things, and there's like 3 or 4 venues in Raleigh that are still up and running and stable. So definitely want to hopefully in the future.
Yeah, that'd be really cool to like brand. Like I remember, some artists mentioned their favorite set they ever played was at like a vegan restaurant or something. So it's always like weird little niches you can have.
Yeah,
that's dope.
So y'all have been. You mentioned you were dropping music. Was it this summer?
I dropped a project. I think it was July 8th or 9th. One of those days. One of those Fridays. Yeah, it's called Lonely Hearts Club.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you have the time, go check that out.
Yeah. So you mentioned it was. You put the club in Lonely Hearts Club, as it were. There was a kind of like a.
Yeah, I mean it's a club vibe, so it has everything from like classic hip hop or like. Very moments, kind of every emotion that you would feel at a club, but it's lonely. But I mean, you could still party and have fun and and enjoy it with people. But yeah, it's a vibe.
Interesting. So kind of like melancholic club.
There are but I mean there are some high moments, that are fun that are just like it's a club, so you let loose.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's some fun moments, but there are a lot of darker moments.
Yeah. And I believe you dropped a song pretty recently. You dropped "Relentless."
I did, yeah.
Yeah,
that was more like a Lucy with a Chloe to God. Shout out to Chloe. But I am gearing up to drop something called Lania soon. Okay. So yeah, that's where I'm focused on after this.
Is that gonna be like an album or like an EP? Like what are we?
Yeah, that's gonna be my like first like debut album essentially.
Yeah.
And it was kind of just inspired by like I don't know if you heard the term Lani Akia before.
I don't know if I have.
It's basically, not to get all nerdy, but it's like essentially astronomers out in Hawaii. They kind of named our Milky Way and it's called a supercluster essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Just mapping out our kind of, immediate universe. And Laniakea means immense heaven in Hawaiian. So just being inspired by that name and what that kind of represents.
That's really cool. So does that, I guess, like, how does the music connect to that? Is it very like, you mentioned like you like to talk about topics. Is it very like kind of like a theme heavy album?
I would definitely say so. Like there's different layers to it. On one, it's kind of spiritual, not necessarily like religious, but just again looking out beyond where we are here and what that means in relation to what Laniakea is, as far as like how small we are compared to all the planets and stars and all that. And there's a lot of soul samples and things of that nature on it. So in a sense, it's touching on a lot of like exploration of faith. And again, it doesn't have to be in a religious sense, but just kind of inspired by day to day and what that kind of inspires you to do from there.
For sure. So do you know when that's dropping around?
Yeah, it'll be definitely here early November, I want to say.
Awesome.
Putting the finishing touches on it.
Yeah. And I wish you luck with that. Do you have any features lined up for it?
Yeah, I got a couple from the area, but a lot of different producers for sure, just around the way, around the internet.
Nice. So I've been talking to a lot of people who've been like, all right, this album was made by one producer, and I've worked with them intimately, so this is a very different vibe than that.
For sure,
Nice.
yeah. It's definitely something I started like a couple years ago, and it went through many iterations, and so yeah, that's why it's kind of scattered, but there's still like a uniform sound though.
For sure.
Yeah.
Both of those sound very like thought-provoking, I guess. Were they like both? Is there some like pandemic influences on those? Obviously, we've had a lot of time to kind of be in our houses and think about things over the last few years.
Right, and I would say he's one of the features on there, so we definitely have something together. But it was weird. Like I said, I went through different iterations of it, and I've put out projects, that I made in the pandemic. And some of these songs that are on this one were before the pandemic, so I kind of see it as like a time capsule of like a couple years, just grouped into one.
That's really cool.
Yeah, but definitely, no kind of like bars about vaccines or nothing like that. But
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Just like the vibes of it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's actually, I didn't think about it, but Lonely Hearts Club could have spoke to like the pandemic.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Those
because I mean, you like essentially the idea is we kind of complain about the things that we had, but then once those are taken away,
literally,
are we still appreciative or moving forward in that essence of being what's there? That's why it's like you spend a lot of time alone, you start to find what you actually care for, what's actually moves you, and that's what a lot of people in the pandemic, we spend a lot of time alone, or we spend a lot of time with a small group of people, because we couldn't be in large gatherings. But now though, this day shift, you can be in a large gathering.
Right. So did y'all like, was that the pandemic kind of like a time to like work on music and stuff and just like focus more on that end?
Oh, 1,000%. That's why I said I made like two other projects, while I was there. So I feel like for me anyway, that they may have kind of been, geared towards that mind state.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like being on the other side of that, with being able to do stuff like this show, we kind of get to test out all that new material, and I kind of saw it as like a hyperbolic time chamber or something, just practicing as much as possible.
Yeah.
So that's why we're really excited to do this show, just because it's been a while since we were able to, put on an event like this. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a really good time.
Yeah. Do you think that it's gonna like, I don't know, feel different now than like, I don't know, a 2019 show or something like that?
I'm gonna be honest here. Just even stepping out, like in public, is totally different. Like I mean, even being on campus, because I was on a campus not too long ago, Chapel Hill or whatever, and it was just like, you guys don't seem like you're having fun. Like,
don't do that.
No, I was just saying, like, because when I was on campus, we just had fun. Like, it was the energy, because it just feels like everyone's just more focused on getting through it rather than sitting there enjoying the moment. Which that also is what Lonely Hearts Club is about like it's also about you do have to enjoy where you're at, no matter where you're at, or any situation.
They
try to make the best of it.
Yeah, they did a pretty. I heard Masho came there last week, so I think they're starting to like kind of come back. But yeah, it's been a hard adjustment for sure. So let's see, y'all collaborate a lot. You're in the same room, of course. So y'all have a nice blend of like solo projects, but then like working on each other's solo projects and that kind of thing.
For sure, yeah, we definitely have something in the works. You know, once my next project is out, and I guess for next year, it's called Walking Miracle. So it kind of does blend, I guess, some of both of the worlds of what we've been working on.
For like the last 3 or 4 years, well, 2, 3 years.
Yeah. Definitely taking our time with it, but yeah.
Nice. And do y'all like, how much of a connection do y'all have to, I guess, like the local scene? Like I know a lot of people like, I don't know, be the more like bedroom artists and stuff, and people will be like more like out there like collaborating and stuff. How do you find like a nice blend in that regard?
I would say that's part of the reason why we kind of doing this show too. You know, I moved back here right before the pandemic, and he was out in Texas for a minute. So I feel like I want to just keep making this about the pandemic, but that definitely kind of, I guess, put a little bit of a block on what we may have wanted to do just with our own thing, and as far as just, you know, connecting with, you know, creators around the area. So we definitely have homies that we have connected with in the past, and you know, some that we're just now getting to know. So again, I feel like this is the kind of the direction we want to get to with throwing things like this and beyond that.
Let's see. So we mentioned that, of course, you two are both on there, and Tia Curry. And who else is going to be at the show specifically?
Yeah, we got Les the Genius. If I'm correct, I believe he goes to or went to state.
Yeah.
As well as we have Flower and Bloom. She's a really dope like alternative R&B singer out in Winston-Salem. You got Ife Wens. She's also super dope Afro beats artist. You know, local to Durham. And outside of us, of course. And we are actually, you know, as we are hosting this, we are representing 10 Steps Ahead, which is our music collective. So that's that. As well as, like I said, we have a lot of DJs on the lineup. One is called AQ. She's actually from New York. She's coming down, and she's more of like a Afrobeat house amapiano. I don't know if you heard of that, but that type of vibe.
Yeah, her she's really like on the piano. She really pushes it, so I'm really excited to see her set. Yeah,
and we got the homies One Speaker Radio. They're local to RDU, the Raleigh and Durham. Homie Mike Spencer and Jay, they're pulling up. They're gonna do their thing. DJ O'Henny, he's also local to Durham as well. I think something that's cool about the show is we have a lot of like different mix of like African artists, you know, which is cool. It's not just that, but that's a cool like aspect to it. And then we also ended up adding a couple other artists to the show that aren't on this flyer, but shout out to Deep End. He also went to state, I believe. We got Pink Moscato.
Yeah, she's from like I think she's from this area, but she might be from like more stationing, like Greensboro, something like that.
Yeah, I saw her pretty recently. That was a really good show.
Oh, so you saw her recently?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what's up.
Was it at the fest? In the fest. In the fest.
Okay.
That was really good.
Yeah.
I'm definitely excited for that.
Now, who else we got? We got my homie Odenzi. He's also more of an Afrobeats artist from out in Greensboro. We also have Top Flow. He's from Virginia. It's more lyrical, you know, lyrical raps. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody, but
there's Lolly Baby.
Lolly Baby.
She's one of the homies' girls. She's Afrobeat, kind of similar to I don't know if you're like Stefflon Don. She has like that kind of feel.
Yeah. So it's like a lot of like, you know, dope raps, you know, dope singers, you know, Afro beats, things of that nature, and just some fire DJs. So
that's really cool.
And video games.
And video
Can't
games.
forget the video games.
Did not forget that.
Where were you in Virginia, by the way?
I was in Blacksburg, actually.
Nice. I someone who just graduated from WKNC moved up to Norfolk Beach, and they seem to have or Virginia Beach, Norfolk area. They seem to have a really cool scene up there. What was it like in Blacksburg?
Man, it was a real interesting experience because it was in the mountains, so it was definitely like a small town, college town. pretty much everything revolved around the college there,
Yeah.
Virginia Tech. So it was very interesting, but it was cool too because, a lot of people were from Norfolk and, 7-5 and Richmond, DC. So it's kind of getting that kind of flavor, which is kind of similar vibes to North Carolina in a lot of ways. But it was a dope experience not being like too far from home, but far enough to have a different experience. So
nice. I believe y'all have done stuff with WKNC before. Right? You did was it like a showcase like a few years ago? Yeah,
we did. That? It was cool back in the day at Kings.
R.I.P.
I was about to say, are they coming back or like what's going on with them?
Nobody knows. Like they had like one hopscotch day party, and that's like been all they've done. But
they had a day party recently?
Yeah. Like
wow.
it was. Yeah, they didn't advertise it too much either. Hopefully they would come back because that'd be really cool. I think we're trying to book them for our like show this year.
Not to veer off, but need to come back is Neptunes. They gotta be.
Yeah. Are they kind of? They're in a similar like area.
Right. I think it's like
they're like the basement of Kings.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Do you have any intel on that?
Also no. I think Kings is definitely more active than Neptunes. I'm not 21 and definitely was not 21 then, so I didn't get to go. What was the vibe like in Neptunes?
Man, they played
amazing. The music, they had the best music in Raleigh.
Okay,
for sure.
That's a heavy statement.
Because they wouldn't just play hip hop, but they would play the classics.
Yeah,
but they would play all like dance music and everything.
And just being that dive bar, it had like cool lights and all that. It was dope. I like that. But that's what I was about to say.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you mentioned you were you're representing a collective 10 Steps Ahead. Can you tell us a bit more about that? I have heard the name. You mentioned it before, but I don't know if I know too much. Yeah,
I mean, it was essentially just start out with all the homies rapping. It's still the homies rapping, but I guess just the vision for it was just like taking that mentality of just progress. Just holding yourself accountable to try to be 10 steps ahead. Evolution. Not try to be 10 steps ahead. That evolution and carrying that forth, across multiple disciplines, whether that is just music or the homies who are doing photography, doing clothing, homies doing real estate, stock market, just everything, just having that technology, just keeping that mentality. And we've met a lot of good friends along the way. So it's been cool to keep seeing it evolve. And that's really where we're at with it.
Yeah, I love talking to artists. Like someone I talked to today was like also in like wrestling and also in like soundtrack stuff. It's really cool because like it all kind of comes together, doesn't it? And like there's a very similar like mentality about it.
Well, it gives it like the idea of who the person is. Like if you because we're not just like speaker boxing. We're actually human beings. So we all do a lot of stuff, and I think just shedding light on that is what makes an artist an artist.
Yeah.
Just being with like-minded people,
Yeah.
And just having people who are doing different things, not just rapping or doing other things. You get put on to certain things, like just, I got friends who are really into film photography, and that's not something I'm an expert at, but like just keeping that in mind improves what I'm doing with my raps. And like I said, friends in real estate or the stock market, just that mentality bleeds into what we're trying to do.
People in technology who are dealing with like 3D or virtual
VR and all that stuff,
augmented or just programming, developing apps or whatever. It's just it's an evolution.
Yeah, it all comes together. I definitely want to hit the show real quick just to make sure we get everything out there.
Sure.
So this is a Durham thing. Do y'all like is the Durham area kind of, or like the scene something you're kind of familiar with generally? If you like.
I'll touch on that. I think Durham though, as far as like North Carolina goes, is on the way to doing something crazy, just because of what they've been able to do in the last couple months, with the kinds of festivals that they've been able to bring. They were able to bring like Afro Soca, they were able to bring Slingshot.
So good.
They have the D-Pack and everything. So post-pandemic, I don't know the plan, but I would say Durham is the spot to be.
Yeah, especially for like electronic, they've like always seem to have that like entrenched stuff. But
for sure.
Yeah, even more.
And obviously being from Raleigh, it's like we definitely want to do more stuff here as well.
For sure.
And even the vision with this show, we just try to find a balance of like getting artists from like all around, like whether that was Raleigh or the other side with Winston. Even trying to balance it out as far as the male and female performers and things of that nature, the vendors. Just trying to put our spin on
Sure.
these type of events. So, not to mention, we do have an open bar while supplies last. If if you're 21 and up. So.
Wish that could be 1 month. We're so close. We're so close.
Yeah, and
Almost
also
there.
it's not just a 21 up and party.
Yeah, for sure.
18 can get in. Just don't drink, please.
Of course. Do not drink underage, everyone.
There you go.
Let's see. Who designed the poster, by the way? This is a really cool pattern going here.
Oh yeah, shout out 2000 Tate. He's out in Bristol, I believe.
UK, yep.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, just a very fire designer. Does a lot of different designs for us. So yeah. We had another 3D flyer floating around as well. It's pretty cool. If you come across that, it's kind of like an open sign, but instead of
Gotcha.
open, it says day shift. So
that was designed by the designer named Astro Vet Montz. He's fire.
Yeah.
He did our Feta 3D. I think it's on one of our pages, but yeah, he's super dope.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Is there anything else y'all wanted to hit? I think we hit a lot of stuff about the show and everything coming up.
Pull up.
Yeah, honestly, come
Day
through.
shift Saturday,
yeah,
October 22nd, 2:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. 12 events, 15 at the door. It's gonna be a vibe, a good vibe.
And where could where could people find advance tickets, by the way?
you can find them on Eventbrite.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? If you just type in day shift
Or 10 steps
a day
ahead.
party,
10 steps ahead.
Okay.
Or if you just want to search and have time, just go through events. You may or may not find it.
Yeah. Or if you don't want to save money, you can just show up to the fruit on Saturday.
$3.
If you like paying more money, that's fine.
Yeah.
And also shout out to some of our vendors on the line. If we have Dirty Bull Brewing, they'll definitely have some stuff on tap if you love beer and you're
They have very
18,
good beer.
not 18, 21.
21. Make
Not
sure it's
18.
21.
It's important.
We
They
got
have very good beer though. So
we have the video game tournament is hosted by Arcade of Thrones. They're local to Raleigh.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? We have secondhand concessions. I'm not sure if you're familiar.
secondhand concession stand.
Concession stand.
Okay.
They're like a buy-sell trade organization.
Yeah,
So yeah, if you want to cop some dope vintage gear, they got you.
for sure.
And we have a lot more vendors too. So
And it's hosted by this girl from Atlanta. She has a clothing line. It's Top Shelf Babe Co. Her name is NECA. So yeah, she's cool.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
So
that.
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. If that's all, again, thank you y'all so much for coming out here and putting this really cool show. We need more shows now more than ever before. So this is really great.
Right. Appreciate you for having us. And
Yeah.
just to reiterate, like you said, it's definitely gonna be one of them ones. Good time. Just
Hopefully.
Yeah.
come, be respectful, and have a good time. And Lania coming soon, early November.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully more fire shows.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Thank you, WKNC, for
Yeah, of course.
all
We
this.
appreciate you.